Usually when we talk about medical diagnosis, there is this comforting expectation of, well, precision. It feels almost like engineering.
Right, yeah, like there's a clear mechanical problem.
Exactly. You break your arm, and the x-ray shows that jagged white line on the dark film, and the doctor just points to the screen and says, well, there it is. That is the exact source of your pain.
If it's visible.
Yeah, it's visible, it's neatly categorized, a problem with a defined border.
We definitely crave that kind of binary certainty. I mean,
Yeah.
the physical world gives us that luxury. A bone is either fractured or it is intact. An engine is either running or it's stalled out completely.
Right. But then you step into the world of human suffering, of like this deep existential exhaustion, and suddenly that x-ray machine is completely useless.
Oh, absolutely useless.
We are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is entirely invisible. Millions of people wake up every single day feeling utterly crushed by the weight of their own lives, and there is no span that can pinpoint the fracture in their spirit.
No, you can't just put that on a film.
So today we are going to look at one of the most radical, absolute diagnostic images of the human condition I think I have ever seen. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore this really fascinating, highly radical philosophical text.
Yeah, and it's by an author named Sufeng.
Right, and it's titled Abandonment is an Achievement. We are going to unpack this text's perspective on how letting go of possessions, beliefs, and even like our most foundational societal structures might just be the ultimate shortcut to spiritual elevation.
It is a sweeping, uncompromising piece of philosophy. I mean, navigating it requires a very specific mindset.
It absolutely does, which is why I really need to lay down a warning right up front here. This text is politically explosive. The author is literally advocating for the total dissolution of states, religions, and the traditional family unit.
Yeah, it's intense.
Very.
Yeah.
So to be crystal clear with you, the listener, neither of us are taking sides or endorsing these views today. We are not advocating for the collapse of society.
No, definitely not. We are here strictly as neutral guides.
Exactly. Our job is to impartially map out the architecture of this author's logic, step by step, and convey these ideas exactly as they are written in the source material. We just want to show you how this philosophy is constructed, so you can evaluate its extreme worldview for yourself.
We're really just illuminating the map provided by the source material.
Right.
And to get us oriented on this map, I want to start with a quote that the text actually uses as its foundational premise.
Oh, yeah, the quote from Zindang Celestial.
Right. It is incredibly stark. It goes like this, quote, "People say that it is tiring to live."
It's such a simple sentence, but I mean, it carries an immense amount of gravity.
It really does. And I want you, the listener, to just hold on to that specific feeling for a second. Think about that bone-deep exhaustion that modern life just seems to mandate.
Yeah, that constant striving.
The striving, the managing of assets, all the emotional labor of maintaining a place in society. This text promises a complete utopian cure for that exact exhaustion. But the medicine it prescribes requires dismantling almost everything you think makes you human.
Yeah, and the cure starts with the title of the text itself, which operates as this fundamental paradox. Abandonment is an achievement.
Which is so counterintuitive.
Right. Zhifeng is arguing against the basic biological and cultural programming of human beings. Our innate drive is to acquire things, right? We are taught that success means accumulating wealth, status, property, relationships.
But the text states that the more you possess, the more trouble you inevitably invite into your life.
And the author uses this highly visual, physical logic to explain the psychological burden. The text essentially asks us to view a human lifespan as a journey.
A physical journey, yeah.
And your ultimate destination depends entirely on how far you can travel before your time runs out. So reading that section, I couldn't help but picture someone packing for a massive 1,000-mile trek across a mountain range.
That's a great way to look at it.
Right. So if you are going on a hike of that magnitude, and you decide you simply must bring your entire apartment and your backpack, your microwave, your television, your favorite heavy armchair, you are going to be so physically crushed by that weight that you barely make it out of your own driveway.
You're not going anywhere.
Exactly. You will walk so agonizingly slow that you will never reach the peak. But it makes sense for physical luggage. How does the text apply this to our minds?
Well, that physical constraint translates directly to the author's concept of spiritual stagnation. If you take too much luggage, you are too tired to move forward. You end up just marking time in what the text calls the samsara of the mortal world.
The endless treadmill, basically.
Exactly. In this context, samsara refers to the exhausting treadmill of mundane survival, repetitive suffering, and worldly attachments. You are constantly walking, but you never actually go anywhere new.
And the text provides a really brilliant internal metaphor for how this mental clutter paralyzes us. It asks you to imagine your own hands.
Oh, the bag of gold analogy?
Yeah, if your hands are tightly gripping a heavy bag of gold, the physical reality is that you literally cannot use those hands to grasp anything else.
Because they're full.
Right. No matter what beautiful thing is handed to you, your hands are already occupied. Or consider a room packed to the ceiling with old, broken down clutter. You can't bring in any shiny new appliances because the space simply does not exist.
The author is outlining the mechanics of spiritual capacity here. If our minds are constantly occupied by wants, desires, and the management of our possessions, our spirits just become exhausted.
We max out our bandwidth.
We do. We lose the capacity to perceive anything outside of that narrow band of management. The text argues that we become blind to new realms. We cannot appreciate what the author describes as a new realm with dense willows and bright flowers. We lose the capacity for spiritual purity because our internal hard drive is just, well, completely full.
So, closing one door automatically opens others. That is the mechanical reality the author is trying to get us to accept.
Right, which sounds nice in theory.
It does, but there is a very specific, somewhat provocative example the text uses to illustrate this dynamic in human relationships. The author compares this concept of possession to a single woman.
Yeah, this part is really interesting.
The text notes that when a woman is unattached, a multitude of suitors will flock to her actively. She represents infinite possibility. But the moment she becomes engaged or married, the moment she possesses a partner and is possessed in return, the other suitors stay away.
The act of claiming one specific thing inherently shuts down all other surrounding possibilities.
It's the brutal mathematics of opportunity cost, but applied to the human soul.
That's a perfect way to put it. To abandon one profession is the only way to free yourself to fully engage in another. To abandon the past is the absolute prerequisite to achieving the future. The act of holding on is the very thing preventing the next phase of existence.
Now, I tracked with the author entirely through this first section. It felt like an aggressive form of minimalism. Clear out your mental closet, let go of toxic attachments, free up your bandwidth.
Standard self-help stuff almost.
Exactly. But then I turn the page and the text takes this breathtaking escalation. The author goes from clear your mind to dismantle society incredibly fast. What exactly are we being asked to abandon here?
The transition from the personal to the structural is really where this philosophy reveals its true scale. The backpack we are supposed to drop suddenly contains the foundational pillars of civilization.
It's a huge leap.
It is. The text lists 9 specific targets that an individual must abandon to reach the promised utopia.
I looked at this list of 9 targets, and the sheer audacity of it is just staggering.
Let's hear them.
Okay, according to the text, you must abandon, first, marriage, then traditional families, states, meaning entire nations and governments, religions, political parties, private ownership, outdated regulations and morals, the ways of God and Buddha, and finally, your own ego.
It's basically everything.
You are essentially taking your passport, your bank account, your family tree, your moral compass, and the very concept of you, and throwing all of it into a furnace.
The list is absolute. And the text provides a conditional logic for why these specific structural anchors must be destroyed. It frames this as a choice of ultimate destinations.
Destinations, right, like where do you want to end up?
Exactly. The author asks the reader to consider where they want to end up. The text states that if you want to go to hell, well, you should abandon sincerity, kindness, and beauty. You break through the moral bottom line to revel in evil, and you abandon hope to achieve despair.
But wait, I really have to push back on the escalation and challenge the logic of the alternative here.
Okay, go for it.
The author is demanding we abandon outdated regulations and morals. If we drop all our morals, all our laws, and all our state structures, doesn't that just invite violent anarchy? How does Rufeng jump from abandoning all societal rules to some kind of peaceful utopia?
That is the crucial friction point of this entire philosophy. The author's counter logic is that our current morals, laws, and state regulations are just artificial bandages trying to hold together a fundamentally broken system.
So they're just masking the problem.
Right. They only exist to manage the greed and friction caused by private ownership and the ego. If you remove the root, cause the desire to possess the symptoms vanish. You do not need laws against stealing if no one owns anything.
Wow. Okay, so the laws themselves are a symptom of the disease.
Precisely, according to the text. The author posits that if you want to reach what the text calls the Lifechanyuan era, or the Elysium Celestial Islands continent, which are presented as these glorious, blissful, frictionless paradises, you have to let go of the structures that create the friction in the first place.
And those are the big ones.
Yeah, the text explicitly demands what it calls the four great abandonments,
Mm.
abandoning states, religions, political parties, and family lives.
The vision of this destination, this Lifechanyuan era of great unity, is vividly detailed. The author promises that if humanity achieves these abandonments, we enter a public ownership state where no one would pocket anything found on the ground.
A world where doors are not bolted at night.
Yeah, the text envisions a society where the talented will be put to good use, and the whole world will be one family. It is an environment where you possess nothing and have everything.
Possess nothing and have everything is the ultimate resolution of the text's opening paradox. It is the destination at the end of that 1,000-mile trek.
Which brings us to a massive, glaring question. I want you, listening to this right now, to really pause and consider this. If this utopian vision of a world without borders, without locked doors, without greed sounds so harmonious, why haven't we done it?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. If dropping the heavy backpack is the obvious, logical solution to our collective exhaustion, why are billions of people still violently defending their right to carry it?
Well, the text actually anticipates this exact skepticism and introduces a razor-sharp sociological argument. The author states a very blunt truth. Abandonment is a painful process.
Letting go hurts.
It does. And the text provides a formula to explain this resistance. The more you possess and the longer you have possessed it, the harder it becomes to abandon. But the most crucial variable in this formula is benefit.
Benefit, okay.
Yes. The more you benefit from a given system, the more fiercely you will fight to protect it.
That makes perfect sense. I kept thinking about it in terms of a rigged game of Monopoly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if we are playing a game and I am the player holding all the hotels on the most expensive properties and I also somehow control the bank, I am never, ever going to vote to flip the board over and start a new egalitarian game.
Why would you? You're winning.
Exactly. I am winning under the current set of rules. I extract value from the system exactly as it is.
The author labels these individuals the embedded first beneficiaries. And the text walks the reader through a hierarchy of these beneficiaries to demonstrate exactly why human civilization is completely stuck. Let's look at the concept of the state.
Okay, let's do it.
The text argues that an ordinary citizen, someone with very little power or wealth, might easily abandon the concept of their nation. But a lawmaker, a king, or a president, they will never willingly abandon the state, because the state is the only apparatus that grants them their power.
Without the apparatus of the state, a king is just a person standing in a room.
Exactly.
The state is the mechanism of their superiority.
And the exact same logic applies to religion. A new follower who just walked into a temple might walk away easily. But the religious leaders, the priests and ministers, they benefit directly from the hierarchy.
Right.
Furthermore, the text makes a fascinating point about the psychology of the lifelong believer. The author points out that a believer who has wallowed in a religion all their life will refuse to abandon it, not because they have institutional power, but because their entire identity is fused with the belief.
If they abandoned it, the text says their confidence would collapse.
Yeah, they would be at a total loss for what to do. The sunk cost is simply too massive for their ego to survive the abandonment.
And then the text turns its focus to the wealthy. The author asks these incredibly pointed, almost mocking questions about rich people being forced into a system of true equality. The text says, if everyone were actually equal, how could the wealthy lead superior lives?
They couldn't.
Right. How could they show off their wealth? How could they swagger before others or make others admire them?
It is a deeply cynical read on human motivation. I mean, the author's suggesting that wealth is rarely about securing physical comfort. It is almost entirely about comparative advantage. The psychology of swaggering requires an audience of people who have less than you.
If you abandon private ownership, you abandon the mechanism that proves you are, quote-unquote, better than someone else.
And the ego absolutely refuses to give up that mechanism.
So we have lawmakers clinging to states, priests clinging to religions, and billionaires clinging to property, but that sociological theory leaves a gap. Most of the people listening to this deep dive do not have a country to control.
No, probably not.
We do not run multinational corporations. We are not the elite embedded beneficiaries. So where do we fit in?
The author closes that gap with a highly controversial theory about human nature. The text argues that the genetic desire to control others is universal. It's not limited to kings.
We all have it.
We all have it. But since the vast majority of ordinary people cannot be heads of state or CEOs, they are forced to find another venue to exercise that biological drive for dominance.
Which brings us to the author's most intimate target for abandonment. The text argues that because we lack a nation to rule, we turn our desire for control inward, weaponizing the only domain we have left, our own homes.
The family.
Yes, the author refers to the family as the first battlefield of life.
The text just strips away all the cultural sentimentalities surrounding the family. It does not view the home as a sanctuary of love. It views the family unit purely as a microcosm of control, a zero-sum game of extraction.
The mechanics of this domestic battlefield, at least as laid out in the text, are incredibly bleak.
Oh, very bleak.
The author describes a constant, grinding power struggle. Husbands desperately trying to control their wives, wives deploying tactics to control their husbands, both parents uniting to exercise absolute dominance over their children.
And the children aren't spared in this analysis either.
No, the text claims children are genetically programmed to get as much from their parents as they can. It paints a picture of a household where everyone is just trying to extract resources and obedience from everyone else.
It essentially scales that monopoly board analogy down to the living room. Within a marriage, the text argues, the individual who benefits the most from the arrangement will desperately want to maintain the institution.
But the partner who is stifled or bounded or exploited, they will harbor a deep, silent hatred for it.
But if families are actually these exhausting daily battlefields of extraction, why does society universally hold up the family as the ultimate ideal of happiness?
Well, the author dismisses that ideal as a necessary public facade. The text observes that couples will project an image of happy harmony to the outside world.
They smile for the holiday photos.
They attend the social gatherings, they play the part perfectly, but behind closed doors they are unwilling to complain about their bitterness. They swallow their own misery just to maintain the structural integrity of the institution they are trapped in.
And this builds to the author's grand synthesis, which completely upends our cultural hierarchy of success. The text concludes that to possess anything, whether it's a spouse, a sprawling estate, or political office, is to suffer.
Because you're constantly guarding it.
Exactly. You're guarding it, managing it, or fighting off threats to it. Because of this, the author makes a truly profound claim. The text states that in this world, the kings, the presidents, the religious leaders, and the wealthy capitalists are actually the most pitiable people on earth.
The people we are conditioned to envy are, according to the text, the biggest hostages of all.
Yeah, they really are.
We look at a billionaire and see ultimate freedom. The author looks at a billionaire and sees a person crushed under the heaviest backpack imaginable.
It's all just heavy luggage.
The text claims these embedded beneficiaries endure the most pain because they possess the most. They cannot even lead peaceful lives, day or night, because their minds are entirely consumed by the burden of maintaining their possessions.
And this diagnostic image brings us right back to you, the listener. It is highly likely that you will completely reject Chuefeng's call to dissolve the state, or to abandon your moral framework, or to view your family as a cynical battlefield.
Sure, yeah, most people will.
But even if you reject the extremes of the text, the core diagnostic question it asks remains razor sharp. What are you holding on to that is actually holding you hostage?
That is the question.
What identities, what grudges, what desires for comparative advantage are weighing down your backpack and causing that bone-deep exhaustion we talked about at the beginning?
That is the X-ray this text provides. We started this deep dive looking at a traveler paralyzed by the weight of their own luggage. We navigated a radical philosophy demanding the total abolition of all human institutions, nations, religions, property, and the ego itself.
And we uncovered a worldview where true freedom means possessing absolutely nothing.
A concept the author explicitly aligns with the core, original teachings of Jesus Christ and Buddha Sakyamuni. The text insists that the secrets of heaven dwell entirely in abandonment.
The architecture of this philosophy is undeniably sweeping. But I want to leave you with one final provocative angle to ponder a potential flaw in the system that the text does not explicitly resolve.
Oh, I am very curious to hear this. What is the flaw?
Well, the author repeatedly states that abandonment is an achievement. It's a magic weapon. It is the specific tool you use to win a ticket to a glorious, blissful paradise like the Elysium Celestial Islands continent.
Right, that's the ultimate goal.
But think about the underlying psychology of that transaction. If you are consciously, desperately trying to abandon everything in your life in order to win a massive cosmic reward, doesn't that intense desire for the reward become its own kind of possession?
Wow, that is a brilliant catch.
Right. If you are treating abandonment merely as a transactional trade-up, dropping your earthly luggage only because you were promised a much better set of luggage in a blissful afterlife, have you really abandoned your ego at all?
Probably not.
Or have you just found a sneakier, far more spiritual way to pack your ego right back into your suitcase?
Are you actually letting go, or are you just aggressively gripping a different prize? That question really changes the entire diagnostic image. We started out trying to understand the invisible exhaustion of living. Shufeng's text gives us a brutal, absolute X-ray of the human condition.
It certainly does.
The jagged white line causing our pain is every single thing we refuse to drop. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of a truly radical philosophy. Whatever journey you are on today, we hope you find a way to travel just a little bit lighter.